Hey everybody, this is Brett with Indie Comics Dispatch and broadcasting from an undisclosed location deep within the Milky Way galaxy. This is Broadcast from the Dispatch.
If you got a story and you want the world to know it, if you think you ready and you ain't afraid to show it, throw your hands up high, yeah, we might stand out. We always representing cause that's what it's all about. We always representing cause that's what it's all about. And if you love some indie comics, let me hear you shout. Like, just stay tuned, what's the story? Had to get that every time a brand new indie comic from the Dispatch.
Welcome back to another episode of Broadcast from the Dispatch. I am Brett. I'm excited to be here tonight. We have a panel full of great guests, some of whom I have talked to for a long time online, and this is my first time actually getting to talk to them quasi in person, through the internet, I guess, still. But it's going to be a good night because it's all about the undead, redefining the undead. I'm a huge zombie undead fan, and there's some nuance between those two terms, which I hope we get into some. So anyway, it's going to be a great night. Before we get to that, couple of announcements. Announcement number one. I think I said this last week, but I can't really remember, so I'm going to say it again. I found out recently, I can't remember exactly when it was, that the IRS is just like deeply behind on approving 501c3s, like 3 to 4 months behind. So we're hopefully working our way closer to the approval that the whole Kickstarter was for. Everything's filed. It's just waiting on the IRS to work through the backlog. So unfortunately, we're still waiting on that. Number two, you know what? We get new viewers all the time. We got a bunch of new likes this week when we started sharing the indie comic resources for creators on indiecomicsdispatch.com. If you haven't visited lately, check it out. But one of the best ways that we can get new viewers to this show, get these creators who are about to be on some more fans, and just get a broader reach for the topic we're talking about tonight, is for you to share the stream. So if you're out there watching this, particularly on Facebook or Twitter, share the stream, share it. Sharing's caring. Share it to group, share it to your profile, and let other people know that you're watching and that we got a great show tonight and that they can join in the conversation just by commenting in the comments section on social media. Instagram, sorry, I know you can't share the stream, but you can interact with the stream online, and that helps us beat that Instagram algorithm. So that's it. Sharing is caring. Hit that share button, and it's all good. I'm excited for tonight's show. Tonight's theme, actually not my own. It's actually, again, one of the Kickstarter rewards. You have the bridge tier. Ed Davis, creator of Immortal Era, pledged at that level and got to pick tonight's theme. And so we're talking about redefining the undead, and it's actually probably, don't tell anybody else because it's just you and me here right now, but it's probably one of my favorite themes out of everybody that has been submitted for the You Have the Bridge tier, because like I said, I'm a big zombie and undead fan, and I'm excited to talk with these creators tonight who all have one of those types of books under their belt. So first up, we have the man of the hour himself, Ed. Ed is a teacher by day and creator by night. Ed is the creator and writer of the ongoing series Immortal Era. This is his first writing project and many more to come. Ed, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for supporting the Dispatch. You are another great supporter, even just with commenting and tuning in, and that's just always immensely powerful when people like what you do. So yeah. So thank you so much for that. And welcome tonight. And I hope we get some plugs for Immortal Era. And you have a Kickstarter running right now. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I'm currently running a Kickstarter for the 5th issue of the series. And it's got 10 days left. So it's already funded. It's moving through and trying to unlock all the stretch goals. So we're sitting at that point where, the high pressure is off. It got funded, and now we're just, I want to give back to the people who are backing it, because I feel like if I make money, I want to give them something, and the more I make, the more stuffed their envelope is when that actual physical book shows up at their doorstep. So right now we're on our last 10 days and trying to get to the 4,500 mark.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So if you're out there watching this, we're going to drop that link in the comment section just a little bit. If you're on YouTube, Instagram, or not Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter and watching this, we'll drop that link so you guys can get it. If you're on Instagram, I'm sure you can probably just go to the Instagram page for Immortal Era and find a link there.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
Go under Finish Line Comics, and the link's right there in the bio.
There we go. There we go. So you can go there after this broadcast is done, because we want you to watch the show tonight too. Again, I'll drop that link in just a few minutes when we're done with introductions. Next up, Dan. Dan is the creator, writer, and artist of the graphic novel Worms Crawl In. Recently, his work has appeared in other projects such as Frontier Forever, Tomorrow's Yesterday, and the 13th Moon Volume 2. Dan, welcome officially to the show.
What's going on, Brett?
Not much. We had you on. You came on for a pop-in, and you're so frequently in the comments that I feel like you've been on the show before. So it's nice to really have you here. And
very excited to be here.
Great. And when I heard Ed's topic, I was like, who else can we have as guests? I was like, Dan. And so I invited you, and great book. If I say this all the time, and I sound like an idiot probably, but Worms Crawl In, one of my favorite books out there. I think I told you before, Dan, that you sent it in for a review. So we got the free digital copy. I got to read it for free. I loved it so much afterwards, I bought it. And so that's how good of a book it is. And to give us your web address real quick. I know you have a web address where people can pick that up at.
I do. If you go to my website, wormscrawlin.com, it links to my store, and then you can buy it through there. It's a big cartel store. It's backed by PayPal, so you can pay with PayPal or credit card. It's all secure and safe.
Fantastic. And next up tonight, we have Marcus. Marcus is the COO at Second Sight Publishing, LLC, a freelance writer, comic creator, and a regular contributor at worldofblackheroes.com and independentcreatorsconnection.com. He is the creator of the Protector comic book and writer of Hedge Hollow, which were both nominated for Glyph Comics Awards in 2019 and 2020, and is included in volumes 5 and 7 of the 4-page, 16 bars comic anthology, which is published by Griot Enterprises. Marcus, welcome.
Glad to be here. Glad to
have you. Another one that I've run into so much online, but this is our first time really talking, and so this is great. I love your work. I love everything Second Sight is doing. You guys are just kind of everywhere right now, and in Diamond and just showing up, and so that's fantastic.
But before I say anything else, I want to say, like, when I'm watching the intro and watching the Indie Dispatch logo come in, I'm sitting there saying, yeah, I got that book. Oh, I got Avery. Oh, it's none. He got Alkalite up in that joint. Oh, man, I love the logo. I watch your show just to see the logo. The guests, sometimes they're secondary, but I'm like, oh man, all of that representation of indie comics in that logo. It's man.
I had so much fun putting that all together, and we had so many different covers submitted for that just couldn't make it. Like, we had probably twice as many covers that people allowed us to use for the intro that we just couldn't fit in. And so season 3 will get even more in.
Yeah, well, I'll be fawning over that one too. But Second Sight Publishing, we consider ourselves to be an independent comic book creator publishing house. And we say that because although we're publishing in the mainstream, going through Diamond and whatnot, we represent independent comic book creators. We represent the guys that we know who've been out there hustling and who hadn't had the opportunity to get their stuff in front of retailers and in front of other people's eyes, get the exposure. I mean, as an independent comic book creator, you can go to cons and you can be out there and still not have major exposure.
Yep.
So being able to have your comic book in previews that's going out to all the retailers across the country, plus being on the previews website, and that it's a big thing for independents. And then with the titles Mississippi Zombie and Harvest of Horror, those two were created specifically to put independent comic book creators, independent artists on the map. Sometimes we pair them. Most of the time they submit stuff, but this is being published. This is going out. I mean, going out. Harvest of Horror #2 got as high as number 36 on the Amazon top 100 graphic novels. We're talking about 5 guys whom people may not have heard of, but once people got exposed to their stories, they were loving it. So we're all about independence.
That's awesome. Well, we'll talk more about your zombie and undead books in a minute, but for now, I'm going to introduce our last guest. And I'm not going to say your last name, Steve. You can tell me how to pronounce your last name because I have the way I say it in my head, but I don't know if it's true or not. And Steve probably has my favorite bio here. Steve, he is known by many names: the Soldier Boy of comics, the People's comic book writer, the Suntan Superman. But he is best known for writing the sloth horror comedies Slowpokes and the upcoming Zomcom, Zombie Date Night. He is Steve
Urena.
Yes, that's how I said it in my head.
Very nice to meet you guys. Thank you for having me. I kind of wish Marcus did the intro because his voice is amazing. Like if you don't, if you want to stop comics, I feel like radio is the spot for you, man, because you are your pipes are awesome. Like I know that might be an odd way to start this out, but like your voice is
I appreciate
great.
it. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it.
Flattering Marcus, the CEO of Second Sight Publishing.
I'm gonna publish your book, man. I'm gonna publish your book.
That's the way to start. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you for being here tonight. If you're out there watching, I do want to remind you guys, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt us and drop those in the comments. We try to get to all the questions that the commenters have. And if you don't have questions and just want to enjoy tonight's show, again, why don't you share it for us, either on your profile or in a group you may be part of. It really helps the show get to more places. So first, gentlemen, let's talk about you and your most recent projects and why you're here tonight. What is your zombie or undead, or however you define it personally, book? Ed, we'll start with you.
So my book is Immortal Era, and it's kind of it's not zombies, but it's definitely undead. But the premise is that nobody can die, so everybody is undead in this particular world, and it's an ongoing series. My goal is to make it a 30-issue series, but I'm already my head's already spinning with little side stories I can tell and things like that. So 30 issues for the core series, and then little pieces that'll go on throughout. But yeah, it's undead as in nobody can die, but also you kind of get people that might look like a zombie because they're hundreds of years old and they just won't die. So we get, people, we see what would happen if you live to be 200 years old, of course, with the science in my brain, because there's no actual science that I can use to prove any of this stuff. So I got to kind of make it up. Like, all right, what's a 200-year-old going to look like? No one knows. So here it's like, tell the artist, like, here's the oldest picture I can find of somebody, age that up another 100 years, and let's see what it looks like.
Well, I love it. And I love your series. I think I've read issues 1 through 3 of it, and I've backed to make sure I get the full set on your Kickstarter. And so no problem. I just dropped the Kickstarter link in the comments section of Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So if you're there, go ahead and click on that and look at backing, because you're right. It's not zombies. But it's undead, and it's such a unique concept. And I love it. I love it. Dan, let's go over to you to tell us about your undead series, or
sure.
However you define.
I have a book, Worms Crawl In, and it is not a zombie book. There is no apocalypse, but there is some undead stuff in it. It's a supernatural story. I like to frame it more around a character-driven story about friendship. But there's plenty of demons, dark stuff, zombies, and other things like that in it. Aside from that, I've been just busy. Worked on, like you said, Ben Krieger's Frontier Forever, Tomorrow's Yesterday, which just wrapped up this past weekend. It funded on Kickstarter, so congratulations, Ben. There's 6 days left on Aaron Henry Jordan's Kickstarter for Wolfsbane, Wolf with a U. So I did a limited edition cover for him, so that's out there now. You can go and grab it on Kickstarter. In October, there's another Kickstarter for an anthology called 13th Moon Volume 2. It's all kind of spooky horror, Halloween type stories. So I did 2 stories that are going to appear in that. And then I recently wrote and working on drawing a short story. It's a Sword and Sorcery kind of book. Doesn't have a home yet. I got to find it one. I was going to send it to Heavy Metal, so we'll see what they say if I send it in there. And thank you to Aaron Dowan. He was my editor on that.
Nice.
And then I have a big secret that I'll announce in October around my new book, which is the follow-up to Worms Crawl In. And the big secret is that the script will be completed and finished in October, and I'll start the art on that. So that'll be in the works.
Nice. Very exciting stuff. Very exciting. We've got a couple comments on Instagram. The Gyro Universe, Alex Sorbello says, how's the weather? It's fine here, actually. It's beautiful in Atlanta today. But we kind of have people all over the country. And so we've heard there's wildfires. Marcus is chilling in Central Florida. Dan, I can't remember where you're at.
Pennsylvania.
And then Steve,
nothing happens there.
Steve, where are you at?
I'm in Connecticut. Currently, we're just waiting for some rain. Hopefully, it's not as bad of flooding as it was like a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Out in the Northeast. So, but just enjoying the nice, cool air. So, hopefully, it won't be too bad tonight.
So there you go, Alec. That's how the weather is. And then another commenter, SMG6907, says, enjoying Blowtorch by Second Sight. So, Marcus, that one is to you.
We appreciate it. Blowtorch 3 out in stores now. Blowtorch 4 in the next couple of months.
Nice. Very cool. So Marcus, tell us about your zombie or undead books.
Well, I have coming in stores next month, the Horn Island Trilogy, which actually started out as a part of Mississippi Zombie. It's the story of Horn Island, which is situated actually off the coast of Mississippi. And it is uninhabited. It's been uninhabited as far as people know. So I was like, okay, that's the perfect spot for a zombie apocalypse. But instead of like starting off in modern times, I've set my original apocalypse back in like the 1800s.
That's cool.
The Horn Island Trilogy tells the story of those zombies on that island and why those zombies were there at that time, why the island is still uninhabited, and why zombies there at today. But it tells it through the lineage of one particular family, the Johnstone family.
That's really cool.
That is really cool.
Sounds good.
And then for Mississippi Zombie 3, I have the next story, Zombie Heist. If you can imagine, in the middle of a zombie apocalypse, somebody trying to do a bank robbery. And then we'll go from there.
It kind of reminds me of Kaiju Score by who publishes Kaiju Score? They're trying to rob during a kaiju attack. That's a fantastic series also. Steve, tell us about Zombie Date Night.
All right. Zombie Date Night is basically what would happen if you were on a blind date and zombies started to attack. Would you stay? Would you go? So I definitely played around with that idea. It's got thrills. It's got chills. It's got a grandmother fighting zombies with a chancleta. It's got everything you could possibly want in a zombie genre. It's definitely a zom-com, where it's a zombie romance comedy. And that is basically what Zombie Date Night is. We just finished the Kickstarter for it. It is about 90% done. I just need to take a look at the second lettering proof. And then once that is done, straight to the printer it goes and then out for everybody to enjoy.
Nice. Very cool.
Or enjoy with your significant other for a real Zombie Date Night.
I love it. So, and one of the things I loved about your campaign is that you guys you had movie nights during the campaign where you would watch a zombie movie, right? I'm not making that up, right?
Yes, every Thursday we would do Zombie Date Night Thursdays, and people. It was the Horde on Discord. So every Thursday we would watch a different zombie movie. For about the duration of the Kickstarter campaign. So we watched like Zombieland, we watched Alive, we watched lesser known ones like Ravenous and like Cargo. just different zombie movies. I just wanted to make sure we had fun with it, and it was open to anybody. Like even if you backed the campaign, didn't back the campaign, if you wanted to watch some zombie movies, we were all there, and the Horde was a nice community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So a lot of you guys have already said it in introing your projects, but if anybody wants to elaborate on it, how is your undead or zombie creation different than the norm that you might find in popular culture?
I'd say mine, because they're not actually zombies; they're alive. The series moves along. There you go. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
You're good. You froze for just a second.
I realized I was the frozen one, not you. So,
that's how zombies feel.
Yes. So mine has characteristics, but it's not actual zombies. But you'll see things. But if you shoot one of my, overly old people in the head, nothing's going to happen. The body's just going to keep flopping around. So there's no way to really get rid of them. And that's kind of the problem in this world is, what are you going to do with, hundreds of years of basically functionless bodies? So kind of a mystery for later. But with this one, it's like with the zombie, you shoot it, you move along. With this one, it's like, all right, we shot it. Now that thing's still there annoying us. So what do we do next? So it's different, but I was fully obsessed with zombies ever since I was old enough to start visiting Blockbuster and getting whatever movies I felt like, and read, every book that was published about zombies. So I had to find the most obscure French zombie horror movies that existed out there. So, I grew up with that complete zombie obsession and thought, all right, I don't want to just write a zombie story. I want to do something that's different and won't just feel like more of the same, because that's the problem. There are so many amazing zombie stories out there, and I can't just retell those. So what do you do to throw a monkey wrench into the whole thing?
Love it. Anybody else want to elaborate more on how your undead creation is maybe slightly different than the norm?
Yeah. So for Worms Crawl In, I didn't set out to make a zombie book. That wasn't my motivation to do it. Like I said, it was kind of more of that character-driven story type thing. So when I created my undead, my zombies, it goes back to more of the like the voodoo style, where it's something that happens to you. There's an action, a ceremony, or something that turns people into those things. Like I said, there's not an apocalypse, so this is all happening under society, right? Under where people can kind of the rest of the world is happening, and this is kind of happening, down low. So just that idea of instead of kind of following that preset formula for the zombie apocalypse and all that, it takes a different twist on it and puts it into more of a horrible thing.
Love it.
So with zombie date night, I always thought zombies are scary, or like my monsters are scary, but like dating is scarier. So like I always wanted to say, like with dating, like, what would that be like during a zombie apocalypse? There's a bit of surprise about my zombies, which I won't give away, but I always wanted to see what a relationship would look like if there were kind of like zombies in the background. How would that add pressure to the relationship? Like, what would you do? Like, if you really like that person on a first date, do you stick around and like fight the zombies with them? Or if you're having a bad time, would you just bail on them? So like, I always wanted to make sure that like the dating is scarier and more anxiety inducing than the zombies. Like, zombies, jumping into a horde of zombies is a little bit easier than like overcoming your fears and your relationship problems, or relationship fears to like go on this date and not, and make a good first impression.
Love it.
Yeah, it sounds so good. Well, I'm sad I missed the Kickstarter, because that sounds like it would have been fun, and I could have thrown some weird zombie movies your way to throw on your zombie movie night.
Yeah, well, hit me up. I'll send you a copy. No problem. I'll send it.
What weapon do you bring on your first date? There's some choices. You want to make a good impression, right?
Yeah, it's like, do you fight the zombies like to look, to look better? Like, it's like, oh, I'm gonna look strong, or do you just like hang out in the background? Like, all right, I can't fight these zombies because I'm horrified. I don't want to look bad in front of this girl or boy or whatever.
I love it. Marcus?
Well, I came from the approach that by now everyone is desensitized to zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it. The fact is, we aren't so much scared of the zombie itself, but scared of getting killed or scared of dying. So coming from that point, now it's like, let's tell a story with zombies in it, because we are desensitized. I can't scare you with the zombie, but I can scare you in your attempts of trying to do something. And now you have to deal with all the other consequences behind that and zombies.
That's awesome.
I love that because it does zombies, particularly since Resident Evil, I feel like, and then The Walking Dead after that, the Resident Evil film franchise, and then Walking Dead kind of reignited zombies. Maybe they never went away, but to me, it felt like they kind of reignited it, and zombies and undead have been immensely popular, particularly over the past 10 to 15 years.
I think it was World War Z. And I say World War Z specifically because up until that point, we saw kind of what we would call normal behavior for zombies.
Mm-hmm.
But then these zombies in World War Z, man, they climbing on each other, jumping on helicopters. You know what I'm saying? They're scaling walls,
making human ladders.
I'm saying, man, it's like this is unexpected behavior for zombies. So here you're trying to tell the story, which is, they find out what they need to do in order to save themselves and the lengths they're going and trying to achieve that. And they got to deal with these zombies, but not just imagine if a Usain Bolt became a zombie in World War Z. You are not outrunning this dude.
You're done.
This dude is gonna run you down. So I think once they went as far with the zombies as that, then it was like, okay, now let's just cut loose. Let's just cut loose. Because up until then, the behavior was predictable.
They followed the Romero rules of zombies. So it was, the slow, like even the worst runner is going to outrun a horde of zombies. I mean, they may keep going and you got to put some miles between you. But once you do, all right, they're going to slowly walk their way to you. And then all of a sudden, I think it was like 28 days later, all of a sudden you see this ferocious sprinting zombie is like, holy shit, nobody's outrunning that zombie. Because that thing's never going to tire out.
I also think zombies are getting more popular now in this pandemic era because it's kind of like, hey, like if this is happening, what else could happen? And I think this year was also a big year for zombies. Like we got a new Resident Evil, we got like another Left 4 Dead type of game. The Zack Snyder movie, like Army of the Dead, came out. I think Walking Dead is ending this year in terms of like being on TV. It's just I feel like it's starting to become popular again.
Yeah. So why do you guys think that zombies or the undead or this concept of being neither alive nor dead resonates so well with people?
I think because it could happen to anyone. Like it's not something, it's very relatable as like, your grandmother can get bitten by a zombie, your cousin can get bitten by a zombie, your kids can get bitten by zombies. Like it affects anybody. And just like a disease, like, everybody can relate to that or relate to somebody getting sick or seeing, people become lifeless and not there anymore in society. So I think it's just it's more relatable than say like somebody trying to get you or a big monster in the ocean or something like that.
Yeah, the monster is us, right? It's not some creature that comes out of the ground. It's like you said, the guy next door, the person down the street is now turning into that thing that's out to get you. In Walking Dead, I think got on that pretty good too in some of the episodes where you could see the person's loved one was now a zombie. I think in one of the very first episodes, and it was Morgan, was it?
Yeah, Morgan.
He had to shoot his wife there, so that really brought that kind of horror of having to do something like that home to people.
I think it's the whole thought of not knowing. So we have to actually make up what we think the undead, what it's like to be undead, because we don't know. There's no one that we can ask to find out what it's like to be undead. So because we don't know, we let our imaginations run wild. And since we let our imaginations run wild, we start putting different characteristic traits and personalities and whatnot into the dead body to now kind of animate it but let it still keep its dead form. So just the fact that we don't know and we start imagining things, I think that is why people are so captivated. Funny story, at least funny to me. In my neighborhood growing up, there were 2 graveyards and 3 funeral homes. And walking around the neighborhood at night, I would be scared. And my godmother told me I had nothing to be afraid of about the graveyard because everybody in there is dead. So, and it's like ding.
That didn't help, did it?
Well, actually, it did help because everything is dead. If everything is dead, what can it do to you?
Well, I guess that's why
it can mess with somebody with an overactive imagination. Really bad.
That's what I'm thinking.
So it's the imagination.
Now it's worse is what would happen to me. It's like, okay, I was convinced there was a house on my street that was haunted, and if you told me things were dead in there, like crap, I was right. It's worse. That'd be sprinting.
Well, it's the whole imagination thing. It's the whole imagination thing because once she said that as a kid, now my imagination toward dead things are kind of ruined. Because they're dead, they're not going to do anything. So now it's left up to me to imagine when I walk by that graveyard, something coming up out of one of the graves. Just exploring through that. There were graves from the Civil War era, and the sad thing was these 2 graveyards actually was a black graveyard and a white graveyard separated by a fence. And toward the back, the very rear of this graveyard, where all these Confederate and Civil War graves were, you see like families that were divided by this fence because of their beliefs. So they had guys that were buried in the black graveyard because that's, they were abolitionists or so, having stuff like that to fuel the imagination because dead people are dead. And unless I imagine them doing something, they're just going to lay there and be dead.
Yeah.
People have been afraid of the dead coming back to life for centuries,
forever.
Though. Like if you go back in history, I think it was the ancient Greeks not used to, but there was cases where they would bury people with giant rocks put on their chests to keep them down in the ground so they couldn't get out. There was cases where I think it was the plague, when the plague hit Europe, killed thousands and thousands of people. And that's where the fame of vampires really started to catch on in Europe because these people would die of the plague and their mouths would be covered in blood and they'd have lesions all over them. So they were terrified that they were coming back as vampires and they would bury them face down so they couldn't come back up again. So because
that'll stop them.
Yeah,
that's
been terrifying people for centuries.
But I think that's where the difference between the undead and zombies come in because when you look at zombies culturally, look at a zombie from South Africa. Now, this particular zombie doesn't have to be a dead person. It's just a person who's a spell or has been placed in a trance by a witch. And in West Africa, they believe children can cast a spell and turn people into zombies. So that's where you see the difference between a zombie and the undead. Stories emanating from South Africa about witch trains, they call them, heading to the mines to work because the workers would look zombified. They work from sun up to sundown, and they coming out of this mine.
Bury them alive, like when they bury them alive, so then they couldn't breathe, and then they dig them back up so they can kind of do whatever whatever they want because they're so disoriented.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Brian says the first scene from 28 Weeks Later, that was transformative for the zombie genre, just like Snyder's Dawn of the Dead.
They both brought the speed zombies in, and it changed everything. It wasn't those. I mean, the Romero zombies were just the norm. It didn't matter if you're watching a movie from Europe, if you're watching one from America. Everyone followed those Romero zombie rules. It's kind of like that was. It was almost an unwritten law that you don't dare violate the slow ambling zombie coming to chew on your flesh. Nothing. We didn't see anything really different, and those 2 movies decided, all right, we're gonna change it all. And now we've seen different things. We saw zombie comedies arise. So it kind of once we realized you can break the rules, then we saw a lot more happen in that genre.
Yeah.
I also think looking at it from the other side of it, like, yes, the undead is very scary, but like we've all just been really hungry sometimes. You know what I mean? I feel like sometimes anytime I watch The Walking Dead, I just want like barbecue because I'm like, oh man, I can go for something to eat.
Well, you got to figure if you've been buried underground for 100 years, you're going to eat the first thing you see.
Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off of what Marcus was talking about a little bit, how do the stories of the undead or zombie stories allow us to explore as writers and creators what it means to be human? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I think for mine, it's kind of I address the importance of our life cycle. It's like if you could have someone that you love stay alive forever, but be a shell of themselves, just a husk, would you continue to let them live? So we see that, death, although painful, is part of life that's needed. So it brings into, we have a life cycle there for a reason, and it needs to conclude in the way it always does, and that's with death. So knowing in my story that you're just not going to die, but eventually your brain's going to become useless, your body's going to become useless, you're just going to lie there completely useless to the world. Would you still want that? If that's your mother, your father, are you going to say it's still worth it because this person is standing next to me? So I think it makes it where you have to think, yeah, they could come back, but what if, now they come back and they're a zombie because your neighbor's a zombie? And what if you could bring someone back that you loved, but they're a zombie? It's not worth it because you don't really have them there. So I think zombies make us think about the life cycle, and when there's an end, that end needs to be permanent.
I think the zombie stories also talk about like community and like not being alone, because listen, how many of these zombie movies are just one guy fighting zombies? It's always like, somebody with their friends, or somebody with a community, somebody with, somebody meeting new people for the first time fighting these zombies. And this genre kind of teaches you that, like, if you're running solo, it's not going to work out. You need to have this community to defeat the zombies and defeat anything that kind of comes your way by working together and being one and not being selfish.
Yeah, for my book Worms Crawl In, it's a tool of reflection, right? So one of the main characters is an undead, one of the zombies, and looking back on life and seeing the regrets, the things that they missed, and not being able to have those things again. So kind of giving more perspective on life after you're dead, which none of us really get the chance to do that.
Well, once again, coming from a point of desensitization, just like we often overlook homeless, we often overlook people who are outliers from society, and those same people we tend to overlook, they have an effect on us. That's the way the stories go that I write. These people are going about doing things as if things were normal, even though zombies are there. And eventually they have to deal with the zombies. No matter how hard they try to overlook them, no matter what goals they've set to try to accomplish, they still have to at some point deal with the zombies because they are a part of their world. And sometimes it's a rude awakening. Sometimes it's just, hey, they're here and there's nothing I can do. But either way, they have to be dealt with. So I think if anything, it tells us we have to be more vigilant. We can't overlook things because eventually we're still going to have to face them and deal with them because they aren't going away.
I love that.
You guys should be writers or something. No, this is probably the most in-depth conversation I've ever had about zombies, and I'm like fascinated just at all the answers, and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like, this is such a great platform to talk about this seriously, which is really cool.
Well, here's a proposal for you then. Think about zombies, vampires, mummies, and ghouls. What if they were all the same supernatural entity, and we're just seeing them in different ways through different cultural lenses, right?
Yeah,
so there's
cool.
that story about the blind men trying to describe an elephant, right? So one guy touches the leg and he says, an elephant's like a tree. It's big and strong and, has the bark. Another guy touches the trunk and he says, an elephant's like a snake. It's, curved and all that stuff and constricting, so forth and so on. So maybe we're just all talking about the same thing and we're just seeing it different ways.
But a zombie elephant would look cool.
Oh, that needs to happen.
I want to see one of the Lord of the Rings elephants as a zombie.
Steve.
Yeah.
Look, I just had the Pet Cemetery flashback via Zombie Elephant. Pet Cemetery was one of my favorite movies, and it is a zombie movie.
It is. You're right.
Just a different way.
Yeah.
Just a different way. So, looking at what was done with that, you got a zombie as a pet. It's like my dog died and I buried my dog. And what we were talking, what was being discussed earlier, as far as as you were about to say, that emotional connection you have. As Ed was about to say, your loved one laying up there dead. Do you want to see them laying there useless? In the boy's case, it was his dog. And I don't know how many other dog owners we have here, but I had a dog growing up, and I don't know. I think I may have done the same thing. If I knew there was a way I could bury my dog and he's gonna come back to life, then that sucker's going underground.
You're gonna say this is that one time. This is gonna work. All those other times, those were the ones that were bad. I'm gonna be the outlier. I'm gonna make mine work, and I'm gonna have my dog back just like I want, and then. You turn that into your son, and it's like you've seen what happened, but you're like, that was just them, and your mind can rationalize a lot of crazy things when you're dealing with that kind of love and loss.
I just want to interject here real quick. Brian Lambert called me out on the Lord of the Rings elephant comment, and when I become a zombie, Brian, you're the first one I'm biting.
When you're writing that zombie elephant to his
Okay, so even on this panel, we have lots of different genres represented. Kind of sci-fi-ish with the Mortal Era. I don't know how you classify, but I see a sci-fi vibe there. Comedy, and so is there a genre where? Even in movies, we've seen it across genres. Is there a genre where zombies or the undead just don't work?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I think zombies work in all genres. Like, there's even that zombie musical that came out, and I'm like, that is such a great idea.
Yeah.
Even
Pride and Prejudice, I had to read that book.
True. I mean, even classics are getting reinterpreted
Pride and
as
Prejudice
zombies.
And zombies, and then like, okay, damn, I'll read anything with zombie in the title. It's
even my friend Alfred Page. Even my friend Alfred Page and his chess team has a story of Mississippi Zombie called Chess the Dead, where a couple of members of the team are dropped into this area where these experiments were going on, and they're dropped into zombies. So no, I can't see any genre where it wouldn't work.
When I was looking up submission guidelines for my book, I was sending it out to different publishers. According to them, no genre works for zombies. A lot of them have a little tagline on their submission guidelines that says no zombies.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
To hell with them, then.
And they're tired of
This is a zombie love zone.
Well, and you know what? I think it's because it's no way to really just capitalize on one zombie style. Like, you can't have one zombie style. Everybody's writing zombies in this style, and this style is going to be very popular, and it's going to make companies a bunch of money. Because I mean, we got four different guys here. You've heard 4 different undead zombie descriptions, zombie stories, and we're just 4 out of hundreds. So yeah,
I feel like no story is going to be the same, which is really cool. Everybody brings their own perspective to the zombie genre. Like, if I just said, hey, this is the premise for Zombie Date Night, and I told all of you to go and do your own story, it would all be different, and it would all be unique and all be good.
So speaking of that, Steve, when looking at undead stories, are there tropes that are just need to be retired?
I feel like you got to go to tropes to learn to do something different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, everything comes from something else. And even when you're writing, you're like, oh, this worked here. Maybe I could work it here, but just make it a little bit different. I feel like the tropes are kind of like the seeds that people have planted, and you're taking those seeds and making your own plant. I feel like the sky's the limit, but like everything comes from something else, and that's just how it is. Like I feel like in storytelling, you can make fun of tropes all you want just because they're overdone, but like they've been done because they worked.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
And then sometimes it's just some things you can't get around.
Yeah.
When it comes to stories that you tell, and like Steve was talking about, he has a zom-com. There are humorous elements in his zombie story, but yet there's just his zombies are going to be zombies, and they're going to do zombie things. Mm-hmm. So is that a trope? Maybe, but at the same time, they're zombies. What else what else are they going to do? Because they are zombies. And same thing with a vampire. If you don't have a vampire that's drinking some kind of way, whether he's sinking his teeth in, sticking his fingers in it, then is he really a vampire?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have that trope in it. A vampire he's gonna have a tentacle coming out of his mouth. He's gonna bite you with his teeth. He's gonna put his hands on you and absorb. Either way, he's gonna drink some kind of substance from you, because that's what vampires do. Yeah. Is it a trope?
I think they're more like rules. You know what I mean? Like these are the rules of how these things go. You could break the rules, you could bend the rules, you could do your own rules, but I feel like it still has to be kind of rooted in those things.
Yeah.
Or else it's something
Ed,
different.
With Immortal Era, you have undead, right? But you've kind of taken those rules and those tropes and kind of turned them upside down for something completely new. So when writing that, have you found any tropes that are essential still within kind of the undead realm?
I mean, it's hard because I took my basic idea from a small chapter in Gulliver's Travels, and I kind of followed his rules. Like, okay, immortality sucks, especially when you get older and become more useless and your brain goes down. But I think because I play in different genres when I'm doing it, there's elements of fantasy that I throw in that I don't have to follow any specific rules, which makes it more fun. But also you don't want to go too crazy and then you just start losing people. So you have to keep it grounded in the whole premise of, okay, we're doing the opposite story. We're going to save the world by killing everybody and bringing back that natural life cycle. And even last night I was watching my videos on Backer Pause. Of course, you always got to watch yourself on there. And he's like, well, I don't see why it'd be such a bad thing. And it's like, well, I guess I didn't explain it in my video, but yeah, it's like, you think about it like, yeah, immortality sounds great until you realize you still age and eventually you're not even you anymore. So I think that's that kind of follows the zombie rule is you reach a point where you're not you. And is that still worth preserving and keeping alive? So, I mean, I play around in all the things. So it's hard to say what rules I follow, but it's kind of fun to not have to follow any rules and just kind of go wild with it.
So I got to ask in your comics. So, when people are 100, right? People turn 100 on, in this place, they do the news where it's like, oh, it's the 100-year-old person. And they're always like, how do you stay so young? Like, do you have something like that in your comic where it's like, I'm 500, but like, I don't look any better.
I look at day past 450.
I got to laugh because Steve, I was just thinking, I wonder if he's got a character in there that's supposed to be like 150, but a black character that's supposed to be 150, but they look like they're 70 and they're saying black don't crack.
Oh, that'd be amazing. you guys got to play in my genre because one of my big dreams would be to have an anthology put out where anyone can put their take on the Immortal Era. So just kind of tales of the Immortal Era, and you tell your own story. Like, okay, your only rule is people can't die. Have fun with it.
That's awesome.
It's something
you need to do that, Ed.
You need to do that,
I really
Ed.
want out there and let writers like basically here's the toy box. Don't mess with my main characters because they have a full story arc that needs to go, and you can't really tweak things because it could be something I'm thinking 20 issues ahead of now. But here's a world. This isn't happening just in the United States. Mine is a very small it's localized in this underground abandoned subway, so we don't see the rest of the world, but this is happening in China, it's happening in Africa, it's happening worldwide. So what's going down in Japan? We've never seen it. Well, someone can tell me that story. And that's what I would love to be able to see. Like your Black Don't Crack one, you could write such an amazing story with that. And I just get so kind of in my own story, but I'd love to let people mess around and just do this Tales of the Immortal era and just let everybody else have their shot with it and see what you can do with it.
I would do like Jackass, where it's like these 4 guys who do Jackass stunts. They can't die, so like they keep trying to up it because they don't, they know they have to keep it going because they don't want to bore people. And then like one goes too far, just like cuts someone's head off or something, and that's it.
Oh
and then
man,
because we have a character who's a decapitated head already, so it's like, all right,
perfect.
you can live as a head. It's gonna be shitty life, but you'll still be alive.
Look, man, I would go bonkers. Okay,
Oh, man,
I already got a story going in my head right now.
Nice.
Of how these people at a funeral over grandma. Grandma don't leave. Grandma don't leave. Grandma don't leave. And grandma pops back up because she's undead. And then like a year from now, they're like, damn, I wish grandma had died. So who's gonna kill Granny? Who's gonna kill Granny?
Stay down there, Granny.
It's your turn to feed her. Yeah.
So Dan, as another person with a non-traditional undead story, what are some things that maybe just like kind of annoy you about zombie or undead stories?
I don't know if anything annoys me, but just getting back to the trope thing that we were talking about earlier, all those rules that we follow for those different things all go back to creators, right? It goes back to Romero or it goes back to Bram Stoker, and they all got their inspiration from somewhere else. So again, not annoying, but my wish would be for future creators, instead of kind of sticking to those same ideas, those same tropes and rules, try to go back to the original material that inspired Bram Stoker or George Romero. Find out what facts they were looking at, and then make your own story from there. Like I mentioned earlier in the show, there's a long history of people being terrified of dead things coming out of the ground. So you don't have to stick with those same rules of, there's a mysterious disease and, they eat your brains. You can make your own lore for that. Same thing with vampires. A lot of the stuff that we see today is just based on, even like the Anne Rice books, it's all based on those Bram Stoker things. So, if you go back to Transylvanian history, go back to those things, find those facts, the things that terrified people, and then make your own stuff. That's what I would wish.
So I love that. I love that, first of all. And something random popped into my head because I hadn't even thought about what annoyed me about some zombie things. And so what popped into my head while you were talking, Dan, was in The Walking Dead. I hate The Walking Dead, the current seasons, yet I still watch it every week, even though I hate it. People in this world, like 10 years later, are still surprised by a zombie walking up behind them and biting their arm. It's like, how are you still surprised by a zombie walking up behind you? Sorry.
Maybe after 10 days, but come on now. It's been years.
Yeah, like 10 years? 10 come years. On, people.
They should be on like a waving basis by now. It's like, oh, hey, what's up, man?
Exactly. Just shove them away. Any other annoyances from the rest of you gentlemen about zombie stories or undead stories?
I would say for that Zack Snyder movie, when they made, I give him props for trying something new. But like when he made the zombies pregnant, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I was like, maybe that's more.
Although it got done in Dead Alive already, so
yeah, it's like
already seen a zombie baby, but in a humorous movie, because that one's just so out of its mind. But
and like, how do you take care of that? Like, do you feed? Like, what do you feed it? Like, I just felt like there was a lot. Like, I felt like he just did it just to do it. There was no thought behind
it. Peter Jackson did it first, so it's like, all right, we've already seen zombie baby.
Well, I don't know. I guess the thing that annoys me the most is just how unoriginal they can be when it comes to the actual zombies itself. Because I'm looking for people that are taking a chance on what a zombie actually is and what a zombie actually can do. Because me being the researcher I am, when I research zombies and research their history, and started learning all these different things about zombies and all these different kinds of zombies. As I mentioned, there are cultures that believe zombies are created by children and are controlled by children. Cultures that believe zombieism can be broken by salt. You give a zombie salt, and he's not a zombie anymore. So just knowing, and just those two things are things that you just don't see on the screen. You don't see people actually take advantage of, and they're all based in the lore.
That would be a great commercial for salt, though.
Awesome.
Zombie cure.
Awesome commercial for salt.
In the
real zombie killer.
In the 1700s, people believed you could bring someone back from the dead who was drowned by blowing tobacco smoke up their ass. There's a zombie story.
There it is.
It just gives flatulence a whole new meaning.
I'm also seeing like Marlboro Man too, like that's
Marlboro Man's the only true immortal.
Oh, so gentlemen, we are getting close to an hour. We try to keep the show close to an hour. Sometimes we go over, and that's fine. But what works out there by other maybe indie creators would you recommend people follow, or should read that maybe pertain to the undead or zombies or within close to that genre?
Everyone here.
Yep, I read. You got to read Dan's for sure. I like the Gaslighters. That's a fun zombie story, kind of like a Harley Quinn-esque zombie. So I've had a good time with that one. But I'm not reading a lot of zombie comics right now. I stopped Walking Dead at a certain point, and Dan's was something new, so I really enjoyed that. So I try to read it, but it's right now nothing's grabbing me. But I got to read Steve. So hearing that, I'm like, okay, that's right up my alley. Bring back the humor into zombies, and it's good stuff.
Well, as I mentioned, we have 2 anthologies that we publish through Caliber that are dedicated solely not just to zombies, but the zombie apocalypse occurring in Mississippi, from one corner to the other, and we are getting very humorous, very interesting, very different takes on the zombie apocalypse that's happening in that state. I've seen stories where the apocalypse starts in a strip club. Stories where, as crazy as it is, something that you might like, Ed, there was a story where when the apocalypse hit, newlywed couple, and this was in issue 1. Newlywed couple, the wife turns into a zombie, and the husband now has to keep her alive, or he's doing his best trying to keep his zombified newlywed bride alive.
Well, it's in the vows. I mean, it's in the vows, so you gotta.
Till death do us part. Death or beheading, whichever one comes first. But the fine print. But yeah, the besides that, Second Sight Publishing, we consider ourselves to be a horror company. So titles like These Damn Kids, if you hadn't checked These Damn Kids out,
that's a
gotta check These Damn Kids out. It's Bradley Golden is the writer, Bradley and Peter Bro. I'm the editor on it. It's their take on Children of the Corn.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Gotta read that book. Evan Pozias, his book Silence, another hot horror item. So anything that you see Second Sight on when it comes to horror, buy it. I mean,
no vested interest though.
But you will not be disappointed, because, like I said, the horror is our thing. That's what we laid our foundation on from Bradley's Leave on the Light series. So
that's awesome. Dan, what do you got for us? Anything?
Surprisingly, no. Kind of like Ed, I don't read zombie books. I think kind of what we talked about earlier, just because of there's so much stuff out there, and it all, at least on surface level, seems to be kind of the same. So I haven't had an interest in just looking at zombie books. I feel like once I read The Walking Dead, I kind of got the whole thing, not that I'm not open to it. I just haven't seen anything that really caught my eye. Now, hearing what some of the books are from people on this panel, now I'm like, oh, maybe I should go back and check that out. But I do have Ed's series, so that I thought that was a great idea, a very innovative kind of take on things. So I do have that. But a lot of the stuff I read is just other horror, aside from the undead, oddly.
That's cool. Steve?
Yeah, same. I mean, this is a while ago, the last like kind of zombie, I guess it wasn't indie, but I loved Blackest Night, like by Green Lantern. Like that was, I love Green Lantern. So for them to set up a story where all the characters that were dead in the DCU getting brought back to life with the Black Lantern rings, I'm like, damn, that is such a great idea. And like, you can go so far with it. Also like Deceased, I think that stuff is cool. Like Marvel Zombies is cool. Yeah, but Walking Dead, I just feel like has so much of the market that it's tough for newer ones to come out and break out, which sucks. But I guess those.
I've never read a Walking Dead comic book.
No,
really, Marcus,
never.
You need to.
Never. And you know why I've never read? You know why I never read a Walking Dead comic book? I was so afraid it was going to be like the television show.
Oh, it's way better.
I was so afraid because after seeing what the show was about, and it's like I'm very dissatisfied because these folks can never seem to get settled. They're in the most beautiful places, and then something just comes and messes it up, and I'm like, this is just too far.
That's the same.
Well, then you don't want to read the book then, because
no.
You're gonna find more of the same. Like, damn it, every time. Okay, this is a great village. Nope. Here comes someone to ruin it. There's always someone to ruin it for that book.
There's also
I stopped watching it. I stopped watching the show after season 3 because I said,
probably
the same for me. I think I checked out at the same.
Yeah, because they're never going to find no place. They're never going to find a place. Or if they find a place, somebody's going to do something. A little girl is going to be feeding zombies, and the zombie is going to bite. Yeah, something is going to happen.
You're not wrong.
The dark secret every season.
Every season.
Yeah. So that was a tired trope to me.
Yeah.
Because I could see if they at least let them establish. Imagine if they had established functioning cities on that show.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I will say they do, but little girl's still feeding the zombies fucking things.
Those damn kids.
Them damn kids. I'm telling you, man.
Always in the zombies.
A comment on Instagram. I don't remember. I don't think this applies to anything, but some I don't even know. Pre-Dice Freezy says, "Why do you hate the multiverse?" I don't think anybody said we hate the multiverse. So go back to your universe, and we'll stay in ours.
Actually, we got a nice little zombie multiverse.
Going on right here.
Yeah. So this is Indie Comics Dispatch, and so I do like to end every episode with one piece of advice that you would give a new indie creator out there. And so you guys have all created books, some of you many books. And so what's one piece of advice you would give to that new indie creator that's out there watching tonight, listening to the podcast after the fact and thinking, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make my book.
I could start. I think follow your muse. No matter what is in your head, like no matter how crazy or ridiculous as it sounds, do it. Because I'm making my name off of fast killer sloths and like, you know, grandmas fighting zombies with chancletas. Hopefully that'll lead to me doing something serious one day. But, you know, the fact is, like, only you can write the story that you want to write. So might as well get down to it and just do it. Like, it's just tough being yourself, but we need more people that are individuals that can just break out and stand out and do something different, because, you know, you're you. And so follow your muse, because you can do it too.
Love that. Who else?
I would say for mine, I mean, I agree with what Steve said, but reach out to other people, because I kind of went on an island by myself when I started it. had no idea what the hell I was doing, not how to launch a Kickstarter or any of those things. I just went and looked at, oh, this Kickstarter made a lot of money. Let me make mine kind of look like that. So other indie creators are pretty open. I mean, you're going to run into a few that aren't going to be open, but in general, what I found is that indie creators are open to giving you tips and tricks and suggestions. So reach out, go on Facebook, go on Instagram, go on Twitter, find indie creators and just pick their brain a little bit, because you don't want to start it in the way I did. I mean, I'm lucky that it succeeded. I fully lucked out, but a lot of people don't. So reach out, learn from other people's mistakes.
Love that.
Yeah, so Worms Crawling is my first book. So for me, it was a huge learning experience. Exactly what you said, Ed and Steve. There's so much out there about just how to make a book. What size do I draw on? How is the printer going to accept this? So much stuff that you have to know. So kind of echoing what Ed said, just go on the internet, go to groups and things like that, and just learn, absorb, find out information. All that's going to help you to make your book the best you can.
Marcus?
Well, I guess I'm just echoing what they're saying. I would say learn the rules to the game before you decide to play. A lot of guys come in with an idea as to how things should go or how they want it to go, and that idea is not based or rooted in reality as to how things are in this industry. So you need to learn the rules of this industry. So because as Ed said, the creators will talk to you. They'll talk to you openly. I'll talk to you openly, tell you my good and bad. So when you're in that position and the bad happens, you're like, okay, yeah, I knew this bad would happen, and I'm not surprised it happened to me because it happens to everybody. So now I need to find out a different way to do things. It's just learning the rules to the game, because a lot of people get blindsided because they just don't know. They come in with unrealistic goals, unrealistic dreams, and unrealistic ideas, and they wonder why they don't work. And that's because they didn't take time to learn how things actually go in the real comic book world.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Because even though comic book creating is a creative endeavor and everybody wants to be creative and break the rules, there are still certain business things or stuff fans expect. And so that's true, that there are still kind of those rules, whether written or unwritten, that people expect you to follow.
Yeah. Well, you know what? The way I look at it, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're following formulas of success that other people have actually put together. And in some cases, we've added things here or there that adds to our own personal success. But we're following a formula, and we learned that formula. And we applied what we learned, and as we applied what we learned, we're able to make adjustments and changes as we went along because we learned the formula. So you aren't going to get away from having to learn the basics, learn the rules. You'll be surprised how big the box is you're working in when you learn the rules, because otherwise you'll always see the box as being small because you don't know.
Yep, 100%. Gentlemen, we're at the end of our time together tonight. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for coming and talking about the undead or zombies or whatever term you want to use. It's a very analogous term now. But thank you guys so much for being here. Ed, Dan, Steve, Marcus. I do want to do another shout out for Ed. He is the reason we're here tonight talking about redefining the undead, and he has a Kickstarter going on right now. I dropped that link again in the comments. And if you haven't supported it, go support that. Help him reach that $4,500 stretch goal. If you're listening to this next week, on the podcast, then you got like 3 days left as far as it goes. I think when we drop the podcast next Thursday. So get to that link. Yeah, get to that link and support it. So,
And if it gets 10,000, we're gonna make that zombie elephant.
Oh, we're doing it.
We're riding it.
you know, they are talking about cloning woolly mammoths, and we might have the first zombie elephant within the year. You don't know.
That can't go wrong.
No,
Yeah,
no. There's been no movies about that. None. Gentlemen, thank you again for being here tonight. We're back again next Thursday, everybody. We got a great show for you next week, talking about the state of Subsume Media, and so we will be here talking about that and about their books and what they got going on there. So everybody out there, thank you again. Thank you for tuning in tonight. If you're listening to this on the podcast, thank you, and we will see you again next week.
Peace.